My dear students, welcome to the revision series where we are revising important things and important in such a way कि 1 December को ये classes हमको ऐसे ना रील की तरह दिमाग में चलनी चाहिए, right? And it should be like a pump up for us कि हाँ हमने ये revision कर रखा है and now we know everything. And before we delve into the topic, we start the class. Revision is very important. ये आप class देख रहे हो तो आपके पास में ना अब इस टॉपिक से रिलेटेड इतनी क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए दैट व्हेन यू आर लुकिंग एट द क्वेश्चन यू आर लाइक एबल टू सॉल्व इट इन अ मिनट, इवन अंडर अ मिनट. और वहाँ पर ना आपको कन्फ्यूजन प्लेग नहीं करना चाहिए कि ये हो भी सकता है पर ये कैसे होगा. दैट शुड नॉट बी अ पार्ट ऑफ इट, राइट? व्हेन यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट रिविजन तो होता क्या है ना कि हमने रिवाइज तो किया है बट इट्स लाइक पैसिव रिविजन. You know the difference between active and passive reading. Like I am talking and you are simply listening. That's passive learning for you. Take a notebook, take a pen and keep on writing the notes. Let your hands also work and then your mind and your hands will enable you to remember things. You know, they'll help you कि हाँ ये चीज़ कहीं पढ़ी थी, ये हमको कहीं आता है, कहीं तो सुना था. That should be your feeling. And regarding the topic that you can see, assumptions and inferences. See, this is such an important topic in CR, and when I interact with students, they come up with this question कि how are we going to differentiate between the two things, right? कि assumption भी लग रहा है, inference भी लग रहा है. Inferences तो हमको वैसे आते ही हैं, it's easy, but assumption becomes a problem for them. Now to answer to this question will be what? See, basically जब हम CR को कर रहे हैं, it's basically interpretation. That's basic thing. That's like only thing that you are doing. You are reading and you are understanding it simultaneously. तो जब आपने कुछ समझा तो क्या समझा उसी के ऊपर क्वेश्चंस हैं. assumption भी आपने infer ही किया है, right? और inferences तो फिर है ही आप जो उसको कर रहे हो. Now the question arises कि जब assumption का question है तो how do we become sure कि ये पक्का inference है और ये पक्का assumption है? For that what we are going to do is we are going to study 2 hours this topic. Like obviously एक ही नहीं टॉपिक करेंगे. जो भी आपके प्रॉब्लम्स हैं I'll take that up. What I have heard from you so many times, उन सारे क्वेश्चंस का आंसर I'll give you. But you will have to be attentive for what, like 2 hours? That's like nominal time. इतना तो होना ही चाहिए, right? इतना तो मतलब हमारा टाइम होना ही चाहिए कि हम पढ़ सकें, right? Let's start with our first basic revision of assumption topic, right? And assumptions is in plural. See, कई बार बच्चे कहते हैं कि assumption एक ही होता है ना, एक ही होगा. Assumptions is the word. Why? Because when someone is writing an article, they are not thinking on one line, right? You have number of things to put it, you know, to put your article together. और वो जो number of things आपके दिमाग में चल रही हैं, आप सोच रहे हो, that all those things come into the topic of assumptions, right? Now thinking part of an article जो ऑथर के हिसाब से एकदम सही है, उसने सही सोचा है, उसके बेसिस पर पूरा आर्टिकल वो लिखने वाला है, that is all assumptions, right? And from a CR perspective, from the exam perspective, these are the definitions, right? These are unstated premises. Now this topic becomes important. अब premises क्या होते हैं? 1 मिनट में प्रेमाइसेस रिवाइज कर लेते हैं. प्रेमाइसेस का मतलब है बेसिस ऑफ एन आर्ग्यूमेंट, जो पैसेज में लिखा हुआ हमको मिलता है. सपोज आप कोई आर्टिकल पढ़ रहे हो अबाउट एयर पोल्यूशन और कोई यू नो पोल्यूशन की सिचुएशन लिख रखी हो, कोई डेथ की सिचुएशन रिलेटेड टू पोल्यूशन लिख रखी हो, दैट इज ऑल प्रेमाइसेस. नाउ अगर वो आर्टिकल में लिखा हुआ है तो दैट इज कॉल्ड स्टेटेड प्रेमाइस और सिंपली प्रेमाइस. एंड अनस्टेटेड मीन्स दिस इज द थॉट पार्ट, राइट? मतलब ऑथर ने लिखा नहीं है बट ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, राइट? दैट मस्ट बी ट्रू फॉर द आर्ग्यूमेंट टू वर्क, मस्ट बी ट्रू एंड अकॉर्डिंग टू हुम? द ऑथर. और हमको कैसे पता चलेगा कि वो अजम्पशन ऑथर के हिसाब से करेक्ट है? क्योंकि वो अजम्पशन और पूरे आर्टिकल का कंटेंट विल मैच विद ईच अदर. वो जो मैच द फॉलोइंग करते हो ना क्वेश्चंस में, वही मैचिंग होती है अजम्पशन और कंटेंट ऑफ द आर्टिकल की, राइट? सेम ही टोन पे लिखोगे ना. इफ़ यू लाइक समवन, किस कोई फ्रेंड है आपका, देन यू टॉक स्वीटली विद देम, पॉजिटिवली विद देम, यू डोंट आप उनसे मतलब प्यार से बात करते हो, तो अजम्पशन क्या है, यू लाइक देम, दे आर गुड पीपल, तो वो दोनों चीज़ों में कोहेरेंस होगा. सिमिलरली यू डोंट लाइक समवन, यू विल स्नब देम ऑफ, राइट. जब हम किसी से सही से बात नहीं करें तो अजम्पशन भी तो वही है कि भाई दे आर लाइक नॉट गुड पीपल फॉर अस, राइट. तो assumption is true, must be true for the argument to work. Next, they are like missing links that bridge the gap between evidence and conclusion. जो पैसेज में ऑथर कंक्लूड करेगा, राइट, जो बातें लिखी हैं उन सब के बीच में जो मिसिंग बात है ना, वो सब अजम्पशन है. मतलब ऑथर के हिसाब से वो एकदम करेक्ट है, बताने की ज़रूरत नहीं, क्योंकि उसकी रीडर को भी ये बात पता होगी, राइट. उसकी रीडर को भी ये बात पता होगी, एंड देयरफॉर द ऑथर टेक्स अजम्पशन फॉर ग्रांटेड एंड सो डज नॉट मेंशन इट इन द पैसेज, राइट. कैन यू अंडरस्टैंड द साइकोलॉजी फॉर ओमिटिंग अजम्पशंस फ्रॉम द पैसेज, कि भाई ऑथर को लग रहा है कि ये छोटी सी बात है, पता ही होगी रीडर को, राइट. वो सब क्या होता है, अजम्पशन. नेक्स्ट, दे रिप्रेजेंट व्हाट द ऑथर टेक्स फॉर ग्रांटेड. फॉर ग्रांटेड होता है ना, जैसे मम्मी को लेते हैं, मतलब मम्मी तो प्रेजेंट है घर में, लाइक हम उनकी इम्पोर्टेंस कब महसूस करते हैं, व्हेन दे आर नॉट इन दी होम, राइट. तो पता ही है कि हाँ ये तो घर पे है, सारे काम मम्मी कर देगी, दैट इज अस टेकिंग अ पर्सन फॉर ग्रांटेड. और अजम्पशन क्या है ऑथर के लिए, फॉर ग्रांटेड लेना, कि भाई ये बात तो रीडर को पता ही होगी ना, अब क्या बताना है, राइट. सपोज कोई एयर पोल्यूशन का आर्टिकल लिखता है, दे डू नॉट मेंशन द डेफिनेशन ऑफ एयर पोल्यूशन, क्योंकि उन्होंने फॉर ग्रांटेड ले रखा है कि पता ही होगा ना कि अब एयर पोल्यूशन क्या होता है, राइट. That's your taking for granted. If an assumption turns out to be false, the entire argument falls apart. Assumption इतना important है argument के लिए कि मतलब अगर कोई लिख रहा है तो assumption अगर गलत ले लिया तो पूरा आर्टिकल गलत लिखोगे. सपोज आपका कोई फ्रेंड है, यू फाइट विद देम, अब आपने सोचा था कि उसने आपके बारे में कुछ कहा है तो आप लड़ाई भी करोगे, राइट. बट जैसे ही किसी ने प्रूव किया कि भाई तुम्हारे फ्रेंड ने तुम्हारे बारे में कुछ नहीं कहा, तो योर फाइटिंग, योर आर्ग्यूमेंट विद योर फ्रेंड फॉल्स अपार्ट, क्योंकि बात ही झूठी निकली तो फिर आर्ग्यूमेंट क्या सही होगा, राइट. दिस इज बेसिक असम्पशंस. ओके, नेक्स्ट एग्जाम्पल से करते हैं. देयर आर नंबर ऑफ असम्पशंस, उसको पढ़ते हैं. सिंस राम स्टडीज एवरी डे ही विल एस हिज क्लैट एग्जाम. ठीक है, वो रोज 3 घंटे पढ़ता है तो वो एग्जाम पास कर लेगा. ठीक है, ये लिखा है आर्ग्यूमेंट में. अब अजम्पशन सी, अगर उसने लिखा है ही विल एस हिज एग्जाम, तो कुछ अजम्पशंस होंगे, एंड दोज अजम्पशंस आर नॉट मेंशन इन द पैसेज, सच एज व्हाट, क्वालिटी स्टडी टाइम लीड्स टू गुड टेस्ट परफॉर्मेंस. ये अजम्पशन हो सकता है कि भाई कोई 3 घंटे पढ़ के भी पेपर पास अगर कर रहा है तो वो 3 घंटे क्या है, क्वालिटी स्टडी टाइम. सपोज आपको कोई टीचर ही सजेशन देता है कि 3 घंटे पढ़ो, हो जाएगा पेपर पास, तो व्हाट इज देयर अजम्पशन, कि वो 3 घंटे क्या है, आपका क्वालिटी स्टडी टाइम है. ठीक है, और उन्होंने आपको बताया नहीं, क्योंकि उनके हिसाब से ये तो बेसिक है ना, या ये तो चीज़ इंपॉर्टेंट है, उसके बिना तो आप क्या ही पढ़ाई करोगे या पेपर पास करोगे. 3 hours इज सफिशिएंट स्टडी टाइम फॉर द क्लैट. ये भी एक अजम्पशन हो सकता है. 3 का नंबर क्यों बताया, 3 hours क्यों बताए, क्योंकि अजम्पशन में क्या है कि 3 घंटे की पढ़ाई बहुत है. ओके, राम इज स्टडिंग द राइट मटेरियल इफेक्टिवली, ये भी एक अजम्पशन होगा. अब जब ये क्वेश्चन आता है ना अजम्पशन का, तो द स्टूडेंट से कि क्वालिटी वर्ड तो लिखा नहीं है पैसेज में, राइट मटेरियल का तो कोई डिस्कशन ही नहीं है पैसेज के अंदर, राइट. तो ये कैसे अजम्पशंस हो सकते हैं. यू थिंक थ्रू द लाइन. सी CR इज बेसिकली अबाउट थिंकिंग करेक्टली. अगर किसी ने ये लाइन लिखकर आपको एडवाइस दी है कि 3 घंटे रोज पढ़ने से पेपर पास हो जाएगा, सिर्फ एक ही लाइन है, तो अजम्पशंस में मटेरियल होगा, ये भी है. मटेरियल सही से पढ़ रहे हो, ये भी होगा, राइट. 3 घंटे क्वालिटी पढ़ाई कर रहे हो और 3 घंटे सफिशिएंट है रोज पढ़ने के लिए टू कंप्लीट द कोर्स एंड टू एस द एग्जाम. दीज आर अजम्पशंस. ओके, एंड देयर इज नो वन अजम्पशन, मल्टीपल है, राइट. नेक्स्ट, inferences. And now you are, when you are writing, when you are making your notes as of this moment, मतलब पैसे पढ़ाई क्यों ही करनी है, डू इट एक्टिवली. तो आपको ना वहीं के वहीं गलतियाँ क्या पकड़ में आएंगी. आपने अजम्पशन पढ़ा, अब इन्फरेंसेस नोट करो कि क्या होते हैं. ठीक है, डेफिनेशन वाइज, दीज आर लॉजिकल कंक्लूजन्स दैट कैन बी ड्रॉन फ्रॉम द गिवन इन्फॉर्मेशन. मतलब पैसेज को पढ़ के जो आपको बातें समझ में आई, लॉजिकली कंक्लूड, कंक्लूजन भी एक तरीके का इन्फरेंस ही है, राइट. इट्स सिंपली अ ब्रॉडर वन. ज़्यादा ब्रॉड होता है कंक्लूजन. इट कवर्स द एंटायर पैसेज, राइट. एंड इन्फरेंस कैन बी वन लाइन एज वेल. तो बेसिकली इन्फरेंसेस होते तो लॉजिकल कंक्लूजन्स ही हैं. मतलब पैसेज से क्या समझ में आया, दैट इज ऑल इन्फरेंस, राइट. दे फॉलो फ्रॉम द एविडेंस प्रोवाइडेड. व्हेन आई से कि इन्फरेंस का क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करने के लिए आपके पास में क्या होनी चाहिए, रेफरेंस लाइन फ्रॉम पैसेज. भाई आपके पास में कोई लाइन है फ्रॉम द पैसेज कि भाई ये पढ़ के हमको ये समझ में आया, तभी तो कहेंगे कि पैसेज में से एविडेंस है. दे डोंट नीड एडिशनल अनस्टेटेड premises to be true, right. You don't want the assumptions for inferences to be true, or you can say unstated premises assumption, right. So you don't want to prove the assumptions correct for this. You simply need to read the passage, get your answers, and you can have your inferences. You do not want in that case to even know ki what are the assumptions, right. Those who are from pure English medium, whatever I am speaking in Hindi, I am repeating that in English as well. Do not get bothered by that, okay. They are supported by but not identical to the stated premises, right. I'll tell you one more thing what this line exactly means. Known elements from the passage plus unknown things can also be part of inference. How? Suppose they tell you that there will be a 2-hour class of critical reasoning which will start at 6 p.m. Okay, they did not mention the word 8 p.m. to you, right. 2-hour class, it will start at 6 p.m. So your logical inference will be what? If it is a 2-hour class, it will start at 6 p.m. It will eventually end at what? 8 p.m. or around 8 p.m. is correct, right. The teacher can end the class 5 minutes before or 5 minutes later. That's fine. But it will end around what? 8 p.m. So unknown element is what? 8 p.m. is not written in the passage, right. But it matches the information given to you. That is what? 2 hours and starting point is what? 6 p.m. So they don't need to mention this. But you can infer it. This is unknown element, right. This is your unknown element. So they are supported by but not identical to. When I say inferences are not stated in the passage, this is what we mean by that. Ki they will not be written word by word in the passage. You can understand from it. You will have a reference line for your understanding, but it will not be exactly similar to the lines given in the passage. Are we clear? Inferences. Next, an example. All CLAT takers from LPT Coaching Institute scored above 80 last year. Ram is currently studying at LPT Coaching Institute. See, before you ask the question, we'll not take assumption for this. Okay, why so? To keep our basic revision of the concepts very clear. First we discussed assumption. We took an example of assumption, right? Here we are doing inferences. We'll take inference from this line, okay, and then we'll do an example, 2 examples in fact, where we'll have the same passage and we'll take assumption and inference together from that same passage. If you're doing it sincerely, if you're writing it down as I asked you to do, you can make your notes, like you can write the definitions of assumption, then you can keep that same example. Similarly for inference, and when we do it together for the same passage, you can keep that also in a tabular form in front of you, okay, for further revision till your exam. Okay, wherever we argument. All CLAT test takers, see, we can even revise some more things over here. Argument has what? All, right. This you have taken it as an extreme word. All, everyone. See, if argument has an extreme word, it can be part of inference as well, or for that matter any kind of question, right. Then in that case you can't simply eliminate an option because you found an extreme word such as all in that option, okay. All CLAT test takers from LPT Coaching Institute scored above 80 last year. Ram is currently studying at LPT Coaching Institute, right. So only inference from this, there can be many. The one I want to take up as my option is Ram has a chance to score above 80, right, in the CLAT. If 1st of December Ram sits for the exam, I can infer that Ram has chance to score above 80. Why? Because the premise of this argument says that those who gave the exam and all belong to LPT, they scored above 80 last year. If Ram is currently studying in LPT, my inference can be what? In the next exam he sits for, he can score above 80. But what cannot be an inference will be Ram will score above 80. That would be what? Too strong or too extreme. Are we clear? Like you can infer that Ram, and this is not a discussion of clearing the exam. Be very focused on the argument. That argument is talking about what? Scoring a certain number of marks or above that marks, right? And the inference will also include how many marks he can score. But there should not be a discussion of what? That it will score or it will clear the exam. These are two different things. And this is very strong inference. Do not pick strong inferences if the passage does not suggest such strong extreme language. Coming up to the differences between assumptions and inferences. I hope I am making sense to you. Listen to the words carefully. This is not something for you to simply do it and put it aside ki haan ho gaya. This is something, it should be in your mind as it is when you're solving a question, and every single question is worth 1 mark, and every 1 mark is worth what? Our dream NLU, right? Okay, key differences between assumption and inference. First, direction. Now I am talking about how you will solve the question. When you are solving assumption question, go backward to support the argument, right? What if this is your article, here is your assumption, here is your inference. Okay, assumption, you have to go back what the author thought about. That will be your answer. And inference will be what? Look forward to what logically follows from the article. When you have read the article, whatever comes next or whatever can be concluded from the passage will be all inference. But to support those inferences or conclusion, whatever is the support or the backbone of that argument, that is what your assumption. Okay, I hope I'm clear to you that your assumptions will support your inferences, right? You have to go backward to think what the author thought. Okay, assumptions must be true for the argument to work. Obviously, if assumptions are found to be false, then argument falls apart, right? So necessity is what? Assumption must be true. Inferences may be true based on the evidence. May be true means you have read something, you have interpreted something from the passage, you have understood it fairly well. Like, if someone says to you 2-hour class, it will start at 6 p.m. Now, you may be correct when you guess that teacher will be punctual and they'll end the class at 8 p.m. You can be true, right? You may be true about that, or it can even go beyond that 8 p.m. mark, right? So, it may be true, but assumption has to be true. Okay? Locations. Assumptions will fill gaps in reasoning. When you're reading an article, you're like, whatever is missing, but it is making sense. Those missing parts are what? Assumptions. Okay? And inferences extend the reasoning to new conclusions. Like if you conclude that the class will get over at 8 p.m., that's your extended reasoning. Okay? Extended conclusion from the context provided to you. Note this down. Repeat it again in the questions when you're solving mocks and sectionals. Do that again, okay? Now strategy. What you're going to do when you're going to solve assumption questions, okay? Look for what the argument takes for granted, or you can say, I'll tell you one more thing. When you are, you have 4 options with you. Sorry. What you're going to do is, you are going to look at those 4 options and you will check which option is important for the author, right? For the argument to stand upon. Suppose you negate an option, you remove one option, and if the article can still be written, if the article is still valid, then that's not your assumption. Okay? If you remove an option and your article can still be written, then that removed option is fine. That's not your assumption. Your correct answer will be what? The level of importance for that particular option will be such that without that option of assumption, you can't write the article. Okay, you have 4 options. You eliminate the options on the basis of whether this line is important for the article to be written or not. Okay, if not, then that's your answer. Okay, if something is of such importance that article can't be written without that one line, that is your answer. Okay, next, inference. Look what must be true based solely on the given information. Like you can't say the class will end at 9 p.m. Okay, because provided information to you is what, 2 hours and 6 p.m. So you can't add your own information. It can be unknown. Like 8 p.m. is not mentioned in the article, that's fine. But to add your own things does not work in inferences. Avoid extreme language. If extreme language is not a part of the passage, please avoid it. Okay, such as the last example, Ram will score above 80. It's too strong and too extreme. Watch for scope shifts between premises and conclusions. See, when you're picking assumption answers, check if your answer, I told you, like importance of that option between these two things. If an option does not make any difference to premises, to link the premise to the conclusion, then maybe that's not your best answer, right? Some options are written well, framed well, but they are not the actual links between premises and conclusions. Avoid taking them as well. Okay, let's start with the passage. This is my a very good example which you all can relate to. Traffic and population and something, it's a part of our daily language and daily newspapers as well. You can understand such passages well. Take your time, read this article, this passage, and try to make sense of why this article is written and what all has gone in the thinking part while writing this article. Okay, and then one by one we'll take the assumptions and inferences from the same passage. I'll leave the screen so that you can read it clearly. See, let's start the passage. We'll read it together. Okay, the city of Jodhpur should invest in expanding its public transportation system. Should invest, okay, in public transportation system. Over the past 5 years, the city's population has grown by 25%. Traffic congestion has increased dramatically during rush hours. Only during rush hours. If something is mentioned specially, it has to have some sense, right? Cities of similar size that have invested in public transportation have seen a 30% reduction in commute time. Cities of similar size. Moreover, businesses in areas well served by public transportation report higher customer satisfaction. The businesses, okay. Therefore, now here is your conclusion. Expanding Jodhpur public transportation will reduce traffic congestion. First impact. Second is boost local business revenue. Okay, this business is associated with this business part and traffic congestion is related with this commute time. People, after all, matter. The traffic and all matter to these people. See, when I have read this passage, can you see what I have underlined and what I have put in brackets and circles? See, I have put this here to make my thinking very clear that author has concluded something. Author has given a conclusion in the passage, and for me to mark this becomes clear in my mind that I don't have to find a conclusion to the passage. That's why I marked it. Then I put this in the bracket, in the square box, to remind myself that this is an advice coming from the author. Should invest, right? Then I've underlined important lines which according to me will help me remember what all words are written in the passage. Like when I have marked this during rush hours, my mind is very clear that this is not talking about general traffic. It is talking about those rush peak hours. So I'll remember this. Okay, I hope. And then I have taken this conclusion in 2 parts, right? This helps me remember that author has given some suggestion as well. Now I do not know what are the questions following it, right? If I take it in an exam or mock way, I do not know what questions are there. But if someone asks me a question of course of action, I'll know the answer. Why? Because they have given 2 impacts, right? Suppose they ask me strengthening or weakening question, I'll remember what the basis of author's arguments are. That's why I have marked something and I have taken this in the circle. Now these are the assumptions of this passage. Now how I have taken this is, I have written assumptions definition again. See, when I tell you revision, this is how you have to revise. Like, assumptions are unstated premises that must be true for the argument to work. Same line is repeated, but repetition is important for revision, right? When you're revising something, repetition is so important that you have to keep on reminding yourself that it has to be unstated, right? And suppose you encountered somewhere where option gives you a stated line. In that case, you'll be clear that 3 are wrong and then I'll have to pick a stated line, right? Jodhpur traffic patterns and population behavior are comparable to those other similar size cities. See, I'll go back to it. Cities of similar size. If someone has written this assumption is valid. The argument assumes that worked elsewhere will work here as well, right? This is why this is an assumption. They have discussed Jodhpur and other similar cities. That means it will work in that favor. See, when you find this is for you to understand, right? To keep on revising things, go back to this question, to this assumption, and be clear in that कि ये क्यों assumption है. Why is this an assumption? Okay. Next, the population growth trend will continue or at least stabilize. Why is this discussion? Because should invest is written in public transport system. That means the investment justification partly relies on population pressures as well. See, if someone is suggestion public transportation system should be improved and investment should be done, they are thinking about population as well, that if situation is such now, in the coming time population will increase, and if population will increase, you need to be ready with your transportation system in that proportion, right? Next, current traffic congestion is due to lack of public transportation rather than poor road planning, construction, etc. Getting my point? They have focused traffic congestion and only public transportation system. That means, according to the author, no other option exists, right? No other reason for this problem exists. The author jumps from correlation to causation. Now, what is the meaning of this? I'll simply tell you the meaning of these two words in a minute. Correlation is A follows B. Events, like two events are happening. Event A happened, then event B happened, then event C happened. That means they are correlated, right? And causation means event B, this one happened because of this. That means A is cause of B, right? If I say A is, or you can say B is caused by A. This is causation, okay? Suppose you are unable to sleep at night. So your cause could be that you drank a cup of coffee, right? So your cause for not able to fall asleep is coffee. So that's your causation. Like B is caused by A. You could not sleep because you consumed caffeine, and correlation means event is followed by another one. So they are simply in correlation, A, B, C, D. And the next one is not a reason, right? Like A is not a reason for B to happen. Correlation means they are simply following each other and they are not related by cause and effect, okay? So your assumption is author has not taken any other reason for traffic congestion problem. Next assumption. This is also important. Jodhpur residents will actually use the expanded. Then only the author is suggesting that investment. Why would they invest? If their assumption does not discuss this part, that who will consume this new transportation system. The benefits only occur if people change their commuting habits, right? This is important. If people do not use public transportation system, why would someone want to invest in public transportation system? So assumption is like people will change their habits and they will actually use that transportation system. Next, the cost of investment won't outweigh the potential benefits. I have heard this time and again. Like when some investment or some money related thing is involved, or one solution is preferred over another, this can be your assumption, na? Correct? This can be your assumption. This may not be the necessary assumption, but this is fine. This someone can assume it, that cost of investment is and the potential benefits will have some sort of coherence. They will be like in tandem with each other. The argument assumes investment is worthwhile without discussing cost. This is why it has written should invest, right? Should invest, because author is assuming that this investment is worthwhile and it will reap benefits for the public. These are the assumptions. And if I may so repeat myself again, I hope you are writing the assumptions. Of course, don't put the passage again. You can simply put the assumptions on one side and then you can note the inferences. These are the inferences. Again, we'll revise. Conclusions that can be logically drawn from the given information is your what? Inference. First, Jodhpur current public transportation system is inadequate for its growing population. And how can we conclude from the population growth and congestion data? There is that number given, 25% increase, 30% congestion rate. So that means whatever is currently available is inadequate for the growing population. Next, the business line is written that, and then impact is also given that business satisfaction rate has increased. That means currently the businesses, and only some, right? Some businesses might currently have lower customer satisfaction due to transportation issues. If you look at the language of inferences, see, there is no extreme language written. Some and not all, might currently and not must currently. Are we clear? We read it in the past slides that inference may be true and not must be true, but assumption has to be true. This is your answer. See, this is your example. Some businesses in Jodhpur might currently have lower customer satisfaction because of transportation issues. See, businesses can have customer satisfaction low because of number of reasons, right? Because of the product, service, everything. But according to the passage, inference will be about what? Only transportation issues. Based on the connection, and why is this an inference? Based on the connection made between transportation and customer satisfaction. If you remember, I marked 2 points in the conclusion, right? One is traffic congestion, one was of business. Next, Jodhpur rush hour traffic has become worse since 5 years ago. And where is this number? This is written in the passage. Over past 5 years. Okay? Boost local business revenue. Directly stated in the passage that congestion has increased dramatically. Okay? Next, Jodhpur population is now at least 125% of what it was 5 years ago. How did they infer this? Some mathematical number is given in the passage. I'll go back to it. I don't have any qualms about that. See, city's population has grown by 25%, and over the past 5 years the city's population has grown by 25%. If someone is very quick in maths, you can do it right now, that if you have 25% growth rate, that means population has increased by what? 0.25%. Okay, these are your inferences from the passage. Put them in a tabular form and see the comparison between two key differences. We'll keep on revising the same thing till we are not clear, right? And this passage, of course, had some numbers, some data, some concrete things, right? We'll do on philosophy as well. The assumptions are things that argument depends on but doesn't explicitly prove. That's why it's an unstated premise, that there is no proof of that line in the passage, right? There is no proof in that, like how is assumption correct. But you will know it that it is important for the author to write that article. The inferences are new conclusions we can definitively draw from what's explicitly stated. Obviously, this means reference lines, and you can put new conclusions from the passage. The assumptions, if false, would weaken the argument. See, the best way to weaken an argument, we'll take a minute or two to discuss weakening as well. See, when we are solving a weakening question, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to challenge what author is trying to communicate. We are trying to find faults, or you can say rather loopholes in author's argument. And for that to happen, the best thing is to shake the foundation on which the author has built the argument. जिस चीज़ के ऊपर, जिस बेसिस के ऊपर ऑथर ने आर्टिकल लिखा है, आर्ग्यूमेंट लिखा है, बेस्ट तो उस अजम्पशन को, उस फाउंडेशन को गिराना ही होगा वीकन करने के लिए. तो अगर आपके पास में अजम्पशन का क्वेश्चन है, फिर आपने अजम्पशन निकाल लिया एंड यू टेक दैट अजम्पशन टू वीकन ऑथर्स आर्ग्यूमेंट, दैट्स योर बेस्ट answer. Because why? If the author's assumption is proven as false, argument automatically falls down. Okay. The inferences, being logical extensions of given facts, remain valid regardless of whether the argument's conclusion is true or not. Obviously, author can write according to their own wish, whatever they want to conclude. The inferences will remain true and will remain valid. There is no problem in that. There is no problem in that, and you don't have to even discuss if the argument's conclusion is true or not. You simply should be able to pick a reference line from the passage, okay? From the passage कि ये line है और ये समझ में आया है हमको, and then it will have known plus unknown elements both. Logical extensions of given facts. See, whatever concept you are doing, remember them with the help of examples. Remember this class example. 6 p.m. is the starting time, 2 hour is the session, okay? The class will be of 2 hours. Then logical extension of this will be is what? 8 p.m. it will end. Of course, it can be around 8 p.m. That will be your best inference, right? And exact 8 p.m. no one can predict, right? And if this is your only information or facts given to you, then this is your what? Logical extension of it. That 8 p.m. around 8 p.m. it is supposed to end. Okay, are we clear? See, remember the examples by heart so that you'll be able to recall those examples as and when needed. First. Second, whatever you are learning over here right now, put that all on a piece of paper. You know, put two sheets together and you'll be able to remember assumptions and inferences. See, even if out of our whole set of CR, even if you get 1 or 2 questions of assumption and inference, you will have those 2, you know, sure marks. Sure marks is what we are looking at, right? Let's do the next passage. This is a philosophy passage. This can have different types of assumptions. Try and solve this, right, in such a way that you are able to remember what they are trying to tell you. Let's discuss this article. Consciousness cannot merely be the result of complex computational processes, while modern AI systems, now this is obvious, this is for artificial intelligence. Systems can process vast amounts of data and generate human-like responses. They lack genuine self-awareness and emotional experiences, okay? Even the most sophisticated computer processing millions of calculations per second, fundamentally just manipulating symbols according to programmed rules. This is what author's opinion is, that even if it's a sophisticated computer, whatever it is doing is what? Manipulating symbols. Therefore, conclusion, human consciousness must involve some additional element beyond mere information processing, suggesting that a purely materialist explanation of consciousness is insufficient. Okay, this is author's conclusion. This is evidenced by our ability to have subjective experiences like appreciating the beauty of a sunset or feeling the emotional depth of music, which cannot be reduced to algorithmic processes. The difference between machines and humans is that humans are doing what? That you can feel things, you can appreciate things, you have subjective experiences, number of things, you are processing information, you are doing things, but you have subjectivity as well. Are we clear with the words that you have, I have circled and the things that I've underlined? See, there are 2 ways of reading a passage. One is you do it like quickly and you're like, fine, done, ho gaya. Next is to read it in a way that you remember it categorically in your mind. Was can written? Where was that cannot word written in the passage? See, ultimately whatever helps us to remember the passage is our deal, right? Rest all is what you can say, like time waste, right? You're wasting your time if you can't remember the information, can't solve the questions, because questions will follow up later, right? So I have to read it in a way that I don't have to turn the page, and if I don't have to turn the page, वही चीज़ तो फिर time बचाएगी मेरा, right? If I am keep on turning pages and I can't remember the information, then what's the point, right, of exercising, of doing practices daily? We are daily solving CR questions. I am hoping that you are daily solving CR questions, at least 30 questions in 30 minutes, Like this is something you should not avoid, right? Because question solving, reasoning, interpretation, it's all a practice. It requires practice in a way that you remember things clearly. Okay, that I applied this logic that time and now I can use it similarly, and if it does not work the second time, then what went wrong? This is how you have to analyze your questions. Article reading is one part of your CR preparation, and next is to solve the questions with their logical reasoning, right? You have to have a logical reasoning. बहुत सारी रीजनिंग हम दे सकते हैं, पर अगर लॉजिकल नहीं है तो फिर तो प्रॉब्लम ही है, राइट? Read the passage, noted in your mind. Let's see the assumptions. Again, we'll revise what is an assumption. Unstated premises that must be true. It's like you have to revise things 2-3 times, and as students, our only work is this: do new things, revise the old one, do new things, revise the old ones, and one day finally you will be like done with all the information that you could have gathered, and now simply what remains is revision. Okay, next. Now these are assumptions from the passage. There is a clear, meaningful distinction between genuine self-awareness and simulated self-awareness. Simulated is from the machine. Why is this an assumption? Because the argument presumes we can definitively differentiate between real and simulated consciousness. When the author has written those examples of sunset and all, author is assuming that we all have that common experience of seeing a sunset or listening to music, right? Next. Current AI systems limitations are fundamental rather than temporary technological constraints. How did we do this? Because the argument assumes that AI can never bridge this gap, not just that it hasn't yet. How did we do this? See, read the passage again. You have very strong lines written over here that human consciousness must involve some additional element. Or you can say that they lack genuine self-awareness. More sophisticated. This is like the last thing, right? A computer which is more sophisticated, there is nothing beyond that. And author has written, it is fundamentally doing what? Just manipulating symbols. So this assumption becomes true, that current AI limitations are fundamental, right? And not temporary. Next, symbol manipulation cannot give rise to genuine consciousness regardless of its complexity. This is what author has written about this most sophisticated computer. That author is trying to tell us, or has already taken for granted, that the computer can be best in its functioning, in its fundamental job, in its symbol manipulation, but that does not give rise to genuine consciousness. Okay. The argument takes for granted quantity of computation cannot transform into quality of experience. Next, human subjective experiences cannot be explained. Correct? That sunset and music thing. Argument assumes the appreciation of beauty, music transcends. This is basic assumption that it goes beyond symbols or numbers. We have sufficient understanding of consciousness to make these distinctions. Are we correct or not? Like author has presumed that we all understand the depth of looking at sunset, of listening to music, right? Author has assumed common for all of us, right? That we can all understand this consciousness. That is why author has written extreme language as well, right? Inferences. Put it in a tabular form. Put this in a tabular form, like you put assumptions on one side, inferences on one side, and you will be clear in your mind. Remember these, examples for your further reference as well. You can further understand, or you can keep on reminding yourself that, okay, I have done that example, it does not match that tone, right? And of course, from assumption, you can see the words, you can see the depth of extreme language as well, right? We have sufficient, not all understanding, right? We have sufficient understanding according to the author to understand the examples of sunset and that music one, right? Inferences. Again, a revision of inference thing logically can be concluded from the information given in the passage, and this information is all from passage, right? I need not repeat this thing. Like everything is dependent on passage. And one more important thing, okay, this is so important. Maybe you are fluent in some topic. Like I have some students who are very good in economics, they're very good in science, they're very good in reading legal articles. Then what happens is, Suppose they have read something extra about the same topic and now they infer not from the passage but from their memory. These things you will have to be careful about. You have to take care that you do not go beyond what's the printed article in front of you, right? And not your memory. And those who are good readers, those who can read Indian Express, the Hindu, there are always exceptions, right? Those who remember as well. Now what happens with that is they simultaneously remember the articles they have read and the article which is in front of them. In that case, you have to consciously pick. You have to consciously avoid your thoughts. Your thoughts do not matter, right? Inferences for this article are: current AI systems, despite their sophistication, don't meet author's criteria for consciousness. See, the passage has discussed AI's capabilities. So it is very much clear that what author demands of their AI's, depth is not available. Next, author believes in non-materialist component to human consciousness. We are very fine with this, that author takes experiences, important in comparison to materials. The author views subjective experiences as fundamentally different from computational processes. Author has taken example of sunset and music. That means according to author, subjective experiences are different, right? Next, according to author's view, increase in computational power alone cannot create explanation. This is a discussion from where more sophisticated computer, right? So you can see the inferences, and also these inferences show that you have understood the passage well, right? Like whatever author wants to communicate is in these 4 lines, right? And when you are reading assumptions, you're like, okay, this is important for the author to write the article. And also you can see that they are taken for granted. See, author has nowhere written that, as humans, as the readers, you have sufficient understanding of consciousness. Author has written the article in a way that people understand what consciousness is, right? Let's just notice the differences, right, in both the things. Now, assumptions deal with fundamental philosophical premises, basic things about the article that argument takes for granted but doesn't prove. We have seen this, that author has nowhere mentioned that you people know consciousness, what is consciousness, even definition of consciousness is also not given, right? So author is taking that people know these fundamental philosophical things. Next, inferences are logical conclusions. Whatever is written, author has simply taken one notch above and has given us inferences. This is still valid. The assumptions of challenge would undermine the entire philosophical argument. You are doing weakening question, you can do this exercise as well. Put the assumption and inferences I have written over here, put them in tabular form. Use the assumptions to weaken the argument, and you will be very clear that, okay, this makes sense. The inferences remain valid representations of the author's position even if we disagree with the argument. This is important. We can disagree with number of things, right? Maybe you're not fond of consciousness, you're not into such philosophical ideas. That's fine. But when you are solving question, you have to make sure that this is not you answering the questions. You have to think from the perspective of the author, and next you have to think from the perspective of the options provided to you. That's it. Do not apply what you know. Do not apply your own thinking or your own limited experiences. You have not still experienced many things, so some things are like difficult for you to understand, right? Some things are difficult for you to understand, as in how is this even possible. It's fine. If it's in the passage, stick to that, okay? That's your only job as a student, right? Coming to the best part of this video. This is something I wanted to discuss for a very long time, but of course I was waiting for this right moment when you have gathered all the information, all the knowledge, and now you will be able to understand what I am trying to tell you, right? And then we can easily apply this in our main exam. What is this? See, this slide is full for a purpose. For this one, I had to put everything together so that you remember it together. You know how the neurons fire in your brain? You will remember this information as it is. And why so? Because this is so important that some questions are passage driven, means the answers will come from the passage, and for that to happen you have to treat the passage as true. Are we clear? You do not question the passage for these type of questions. For these type of questions, we have to take that the passage is true and evidence will come from the passage. Are you getting what I am saying? For these number of questions, the evidence, the support will be provided by the passage itself. Okay, you will find the support for these questions in your passage. How? Let's discuss one by one these things, and you will remember this slide as it is, right? When you're solving these questions, you'll remember that we have done this, that these type of questions require support from the passage, and for solving these questions, the first thing is you have to believe the passage is true. Do not question the passage, or do not judge the passage would be the correct word, right? First, conclusion. Find the argument's main conclusion. It could be an entire sentence or just part of a sentence, but sentence is part of what? Passage. So your conclusion will come from the passage. Supported. We get that question, which of the following is most supported from the passage, or which of the following will most support the author's argument. In either case, figure out which answer is most likely to be true given what was said in the passage. Most likely to be true is your answer, and of course it will come from the passage. Must be true, necessarily be true. It must be true given what was said in the passage. Again, it has to be true. This is most likely to be true. Can you get the difference between two? Supported by means you can have information which is supported by the passage and likely to be true based on the content of the passage, but must be true question is what? Must be true, right? There should be no doubt about that one. Next reminder is there are some options which are not discussed in the passage. That does not come in must be true, right? Must be true means it is discussed in the passage. You have a reason, you have the line. That is your answer. Do not take those lines like author may agree. That's not your answer. I have not made a mistake for writing this word. Necessary assumption. There is a question which asks you which assumption is critical, right? Those are assumptions which are important for the article to be written. Identify something that a conclusion absolutely needs or depends upon. This is your necessary assumption. When you solve the questions and you find two options and you're getting confused, you have to pick an option on which the argument absolutely depends. Absolutely. Like you don't have to prove the conclusion, right? Because of that assumption. You simply have to pick that answer which is absolutely important for the argument to be written. Next is flaw. Flaw, I'll take a minute. Flaw is discussed for the sake of picking a weakening argument. See, when you are able to find flaws with an article, a student asked me this question: how can we find flaws in someone else's reasoning? We can of course find flaws. When you look at a movie सब देखते हैं, I'm assuming that आप मूवी देखते हो, आप उसमें आराम से गलती निकाल सकते हो that the plot has missed its point, or there's not a logical logical coherence between the scenes. That is what you're finding flaws, and you can use those flaws to make a weakening argument. See, जब किसी की गलती निकाल के देते हैं, inherently गलती कि भाई ये सीन गलत है, that's flaw. When you use that flaw to make a new argument, that's your weakening argument, right? And you figure out the problem with the argument or why premises don't prove the conclusion. भाई उसने कुछ एक बात लिखी, वो conclusion से match ही नहीं कर रही. Or sometimes you've read the article where author starts with something and then omit that one point और फिर कोई conclusion लिख देता है. That's flaw. अब ये answer भी कहाँ से होगा? Passage driven. Like it is in the passage. You have to find the flaw in the passage, and when I say it's in the passage, then important part is whatever is not written in the passage, cannot be a flaw of the passage. Suppose article is written about inflation, consumer price index, and only vegetables are included in that. Now you can't say that other factors of CPI have been removed from the article or have not been discussed in the article. I don't want to discuss. Suppose in vegetables I want to discuss only tomato, onion, potato, TOP. That's it. Now whatever the remaining vegetables that should have been covered in the passage, that's not a flaw. Okay. कंटेंट की गलती, कंटेंट में कोई कमी, कोई कॉन्टेक्स्ट डिस्कस नहीं किया, दैट्स नॉट अ फ्लॉ. That is not a flaw. Okay, flaw can only come from the lines which are written in the passage. Okay, next, role. Many times we've seen a question where a line is bold faced or a line is repeated in the question. They ask you what role this line plays. Some Supreme Court judgment is given and some additional remark has been made by the justice, and they ask you why is this line mentioned. That's a role. Now, of course, if you have to decide what role a statement plays in the passage, suppose that's a counter argument, suppose, of course you have to go back to the passage, right? Go back as in don't turn the pages. But it's a passage question, right? Describe the function of one of the claims in the argument. It is premise, conclusion or something else. That's your role question. Then answer has to come from the passage. Next. I have not made a mistake again when I have written parallel and reasoning separately. Parallel is your parallel reasoning question. In that you have to either use the same reasoning or make the same mistake in its reasoning. Right? Sometimes the question is not directly about the reasoning. The option is related to the same mistake that author has committed in the passage. In that case, either you use the same reasoning or you make the same mistake in its reasoning while picking your option. That's a parallel reasoning question. But when we are discussing reasoning, describe how the author draws the conclusion or how the logic of the argument unfolds. This is like your passage crux, right? When you're picking an argument question, this is for that particular, like you pick your reason now why this will be an answer or why this is an opinion of the author. Of course, your premises are where? In the passage. So this is also basically an argument question, opinion question, and answer has to come from where? The passage. Okay. Disagree, find something the author disagrees about. Again, this is from the passage. Reminder again, whatever is not discussed in the passage is not a part of disagree. A disagreement statement can only come when a contradictory information from the passage is given. Okay, a contradictory passage line only counts as disagreement from the passage. Whatever is not discussed in the passage, how do we know author will agree with it or disagree with it, right? Agreement question comes, you have to take it from the extrapolated as well. That's why I've written only disagree and not agree. Must be true is here, but disagree and not agree, because sometimes options are what, like they are extrapolated from the passage, right? Suppose again we'll take the same example. 6 p.m. the class was supposed to start, 2 hours session it will end around 8 p.m. Author will agree with it. Maybe he has not mentioned the time 8 p.m. in the passage, that's fine. But it is in tandem, it is in correlation, it is in same tone as he has mentioned in the passage. 6 p.m. and 2 hours. You add 2 hours and 6 p.m. it will come around 8 p.m. Author will agree with it, right? So you can have an extrapolated line as your answer from agree question. But for disagree, you will have to directly go back to the passage that whatever is in contradiction to author's lines will not be the correct answer. Okay, these are passage driven questions. For this to be true, the passage has to be true in your eyes. Next, answer driven questions. Answer driven questions. These two lines may seem like you have to read it. I'll read it for you so that you'll remember. Treat the answer choices as true. You have read this thing? Strengthening, weakening is written if true. Because they have to make you believe that these are true things. Just take the answer. Do not think about the possibility. Ye hoga kaise. That's not your point of worry, right? You take it as true. Choose the answer that best influences the argument according to the question type. That's your only job. Okay. For instance, strengthen question asks you to choose an answer that best strengthens the argument in the passage. Take the answer which directly does the job. Okay, take it as true and directly solve your question. Be careful not to assume question times based solely on the keywords that are commonly associated. This I have heard so many times. See, both strengthened and supported questions use the words most support, right? For example, it's written most support. In that case, do not designate this as a supported question. Take time to figure out what the question is asking. If it is asking you to support the question, then answer will come from where? Passage, right? Support means answer will come from the passage. If it's a strengthening question, you have to do what? Help the argument support its conclusion. That means you can take an evidence extra as well, but it will introduce evidence that gets the argument closer to proving its conclusion. Do you get the difference? Why I have taken strengthen over here and support over there, here and there, right? So strengthen is you can provide an evidence to strengthen the author's argument, and support will come from where? From the passages lines. Okay, weaken, raise the doubts about the conclusion. This is the best definition for weaken, right? The correct answer may not totally disprove the main conclusion, but it will introduce the evidence that calls the conclusion into question. कुछ याद आ रहा है वापस? Weaken is to put a question mark on author's argument. For that you need evidence, and if you need evidence, external information. For this they fall into the type of question what? Answer driven. कि आंसर करेक्ट होना चाहिए बस ऑथर की बात को गलत प्रूव करने के लिए, सही प्रूव करने के लिए. Again I have not made a mistake when I have written sufficient assumption. वहाँ क्या लिखा था? Necessary assumption. ये रहा. Necessary assumption is कि conclusion depend करता है इस assumption पर, और necessary sufficient assumption is make the argument weak. बस ठीक ठाक हो वो. See, कई बार assumption के question में ही होता है there are two assumptions which you feel कि दोनों ही correct है, eliminate कैसे करना है. वहाँ you have to pick a critical a necessary assumption. मतलब next वाला is sufficient one, मतलब ठीक आंसर है बट इतना ज़रूरी नहीं है for the article to be written. In that case आपको क्या assumption इसमें आंसर में देखना है कि भाई argument को किस फेवर में है. ठीक है. Identify a fact that when added to the argument is sufficient, that is strong enough or more than strong enough to prove the conclusion. Basically you can say when you are solving strengthen and weaken questions, ये वो वाला assumption है कि भाई ठीक ठाक सा एक assumption आपको मिल जाए and you are able to solve strengthen and weaken questions. Paradox, resolve a paradox का question आता है. Conflict or mystery created by two facts that seem incompatible. इसका आंसर भी होता पैसेज में है, बट कई बार क्या होता है ना कि दो ऑप्शंस हैं आपके पास में, यू आर लाइक स्टक. इन दैट केस योर आंसर शुड सॉल्व दैट पैराडॉक्स. दैट्स योर ओनली जॉब टू डू, राइट? डोंट ट्राई एंड मेक द ऑप्शंस, मेक योर सेल्फ पिक दोज ऑप्शंस जो खाली देखने में अच्छे लग रहे हो. You have those assumptions or you have those paradox के answers which are sounding correct. They are framed properly, पर अब उसमें गलती है. कैसे गलती है? वो पैसेज से रिलेटेड ही नहीं है या क्वेश्चन का आंसर ही नहीं है. दिस हैज हैपेंड, मस्ट हैव हैपेंड ऑफ्टन विद यू कि भाई क्वेश्चन कर दिया, सही था, कोई गलती नहीं है, सब बात मान ली, लेकिन वही वाली बात कि वो क्वेश्चन का आंसर ही नहीं था. ओके, evaluate. This question comes again and again. Identify which unknown piece of information would most help you decide whether the main conclusion is true. See, unknown question का मतलब होता है, unknown information का मतलब है it will not be in the passage but again it will be related to the passage. Evaluate the author's argument question आता है when you are asked to like evaluate whether the author's argument is effective, it's correct or not. In that case you can of course have to take external information. External information का मतलब है which is not in the passage, which is fine, लेकिन it has to simply be an answer to your question. That's your answer driven question. Okay, अब remember these things, again put that in a tabular form कि भाई ये वाले टाइप के क्वेश्चन के आंसर्स किस में होंगे? पैसेज में. इन टाइप के क्वेश्चंस के आंसर्स किस में होंगे? ऑप्शंस में. व्हेन यू आर सॉल्विंग दीज क्वेश्चंस मेक श्योर कि योर ऑप्शन इज द बेस्ट वन, राइट? रीड द स्टेम ऑफ द क्वेश्चन करेक्टली and try to apply that इन योर मॉक्स, जब आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो, व्हेन यू आर डूइंग मॉक्स, तो उसमें ना इनको अप्लाई करके देखो. एंड ऑफकोर्स कोई डाउट आता है, कोई प्रॉब्लम है, आस्क मी, राइट. पुट दैट क्वेश्चन इन द कॉमेंट बॉक्स, आई विल आंसर यू. अभी आपके पास में बहुत टाइम कम है. यू हैव ओनली लाइक व्हाट मंथ ऑफ नवंबर इज लेफ्ट एंड यू हैव टू स्टडी 5 सब्जेक्ट्स. अब जब 5 सब्जेक्ट पढ़ रहे हो तो यू नीड लाइक सेपरेट टाइम फॉर एवरी सब्जेक्ट. इफ़ यू से कि 5 दिन में एक बार CR करते हैं, तो मतलब अच्छा लॉजिक थोड़ी ना है. मतलब हाउ विल यू डू इट? इट हैज़ टू बी लाइक व्हाट, आज CR की तो 1 आवर फॉर दैट, आज RC की तो 1 आवर फॉर दैट, राइट. QT अगर हमको आती नहीं है या हमसे होती नहीं, इट हैज़ टू बी लाइक number of hours dedicated to QT in that case should be more. If you have not done QT up till now in such a way that you can score those 8-9 marks every single time when you're doing a mock, that means you need to give more time to your QT, right. When you're doing QT questions and you suddenly realize that okay, GK backlog is also there, you have now these many days only. Put your hours into systematic use is what my suggestion is. If you have to solve CR questions, you have to solve it. There is no doubt about that. Or if you think कि कल कर लेंगे, there is no कल coming for you. There is no tomorrow coming for anyone. All tomorrow converts into today. हर कल आज में बदल जाता है. अगर आपका कल, आप सोचो कल कर लेंगे, कल से करेंगे, there is no कल coming for anyone, right? आज के काम में टास्क लिस्ट लिखो. जैसे आज के 2 घंटे का अगर ये हो गया CR आपका, तो कल इसको यूज़ भी तो करना पड़ेगा. Tomorrow take those 30 questions, apply whatever you have learned over here, and if you still feel you're not able to solve it, of course, come back to the video, come back to the doubts part, right, and ask the question. Do not keep your confusions or doubts for the last moment. It's obvious, right? Now, of course, some practice is important. Assumption, inference, plus you need some extra as well. And for that, let's do the practice part, right? You read the passage over here. You take your time, mark your lines, right? Of course, you can do that in your mind. But for that, you have to focus on the passage. Read it correctly and do all the questions like you mean it. राइट ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि मतलब किया तो था बट याद नहीं है. एज स्टूडेंट्स, एज कंपेटिटर्स फॉर अ वेरी कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम, यू हैव टू बी क्लियर दैट वॉट एवर यू आर स्टडिंग और वॉट एवर यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर or whatever, even one question you are solving, it should be clear in your mind, right? I'll read the passage with you. Of course, what was supposed to be taken from the passage, what was supposed to be important for you to highlight or remember, we'll take that, right? And what was supposed to be you could have let go of that, I'll tell you. I'll leave the screen so that you can read it properly, and then I'll come back to it, right? Okay, let's discuss. This is an article from the Hindu. The source is the Hindu. And I am assuming that you are still reading your newspaper daily. Is there anyone who has like left this to God's will? कि भगवान चाहेगा तो पढ़ लेंगे. If God pushes us for newspaper, we'll read it. Don't do that. You're doing very good. You only have to do it for some more days, and then you can be sitting in your dream NLU, right? It's just a matter of a month or a few days, right? Just few days and you'll be like ready for it, like yeah, exam karwa do, right? Let's read the article. One I have again heard, corrected, discussed with students is do not miss the first word. That's where your article is starting. You see, I know that you have to do 120 questions and you're in a rush. You have to do the complete set. And for that, my suggestion to you is to try it. Do not like jump into it. किसी ने कह दिया करना है. It's not like that. My suggestion says that you can do RC and legal in still a fast way, if you know what I mean. You can focus on speed because answers are coming from the passage. You read the passage line by line, word by word. When you're solving the question, you can find your answers, right? Like you have a principle and then you can solve the question. Whatever time you can save or you can extend, it should be in CR. because CR is interpretation, and interpretation is what? Whatever is written, वो समझ में भी तो आना चाहिए ना. You should be able to understand at the same time. If you need to go back to the passage again and again, your practice part is still weak. You are still not good in reading the articles. So when you are reading it, you should be able to read it from the first line itself and go on marking the coherent lines, right? The lines which are in sequence with each other, talking about the same thing. You should be able to mark that. That's your good reading. Next, let's start the article. Legal delay has consequences that have been discussed to death but live on. This is important. Whenever you read words such as but, yet, however, their new argument is getting introduced. Okay? There you have to focus, because that is what author is trying to convey. This is a normal line, right? Consequences, there are consequences of judicial delay, we all know, but they live on. The discussion still lives on. The gigantic case backlog, this is important, which the judiciary bears with self-congratulatory stoicism, is a direct consequence. Self-congratulatory stoicism, फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता judiciary को. No? Another is the huge number of under trials. Can you see the problems with delay? One is case backlog, huge number of that. Second is number of under trials. See, when you have read so many articles and you can, see the causes or number of things that the author is, about to discuss, you can put it like this. Approaching the population of Chennai. Meanwhile, another demographic has been surging. The community of lawyers, see, another, this is the third point coming up. The community of lawyers and advocates, expert at seeking adjournments to delay verdicts adverse to their clients. This is third reason for legal delay, which the author is pointing out. They have no desire to win cases. Such a extreme line. They lose them after buying their clients' time, even a decade or two. Such a big line to say that the advocates, they do what? They keep on extending the time and still they lose the case. CJI Chandrachud has spoken of tightening norms to discourage the practice. His speeches are unimpeachable. Not an important line, not an important word for you to ponder over it. He has given this, he has told this, he has told to tighten the norms, that's it. Okay? During the long pendency of cases, the principle of sub judice can be invoked at any time to protect courts from criticism. Principle of sub judice, the matter is in the court. This should, it should just, the bulb should light in your head. Okay, this is the meaning of it. And why am I saying at this point that this should be in your mind is because you have read articles, number of articles throughout your preparation, and of course that is my assumption, and it's a strong assumption because of course if you are preparing for an exam, basic thing in this exam is reading. So by this time you should know the meaning of principle of sub judice. But ironically it is not a reliable deterrent. Where have I missed it? Invoked at any time to protect courts from criticism. This is the principle of sub judice, where public interest turns into sick fascination and judges themselves become actors in courtroom dramas. The principle of sub judice just falls by the wayside. See, here legal delay is getting discussed. Here it is discussing principle of sub judice. That happened in the Arushi Talwar Nithari murder cases, in which TV anchors became judges, jury members and executioners. So is the principle worth protecting at all? Principle is which? This principle. Principle of sub judice. CJ Chandrachud has now revealed that the Ayodhya judgment was divine revelation. Had we known this at the time, the public could have been spared the trouble of harboring unrealistic expectations from courts. Public has this unrealistic expectation that justice is not served. This is not in the passage. This is my overthinking mind. when it is written that unrealistic expectations from the courts. Let me, as a student I am talking about, let me wait for the questions to come up, right? Rather than going into a movie frame and I'm like, हाँ, realistic expectations तो मतलब नहीं रखती जनता, right? This is how we think. Injustice होती है, injustice होती है, delay हो जाता है, हाँ हमारे साथ भी हुआ था, हमारे घर में भी कोर्ट केस था, नहीं जानना, नहीं करना. You do not have to do that, right? Where the article ends, you also end. Okay? Whatever is in the passage is your content. Legal delay, advocates and lawyers have been blamed, huge backlog, huge number of under trials, that's here. Okay? CJI Chandrachud has given this tightening norms. And then principle of sub judice is given. Sub judice, then two cases are given as examples. Then is it worth protecting at all? There is a question mark. Then CJI Chandrachud has said that Ayodhya judgment was divine revelation. Then it is saying that public could have been spared the trouble of harboring unrealistic expectations. Only this much is written in the article. Whatever more I am thinking or will be thinking is what? Overthinking. Okay? One more way of overthinking, let's discuss. Why has the author discussed legal delay and principle of sub judice in the same article? Author could have done what? Written only about legal delay or about only principle of sub judice. What's the point of mixing these two? That's not our discussion. Okay, that's not our work to do. Author has written one paragraph about legal delay. It's about sub judice, that's fine. If there is a clean cut over here in the article, if you have read this article from the original newspaper, there are following things in the article. Author has mixed these two things. That's fine. For you, as a student solving CR question, the article should end over here. Even if you have read the passage very thoroughly, and you know there are some articles, you read the lines and you're like, yeah, I've read this, right? Do not take the conclusion of the original article over here. Am I making sense to you all? Like, suppose you have read those 1,000 words, you read it very thoroughly that it's etched in your memory. That's fine. We as CR questions are not discussing or taking into account what original article says. All my answers will come from where? Only these two paragraphs. The rest I will have to forget. Are we clear? Write that down in bold words, that forget what you have read from the original article. I don't want you to remember that. Okay? We'll solve some questions. Of course, questions are not from assumption and inference. We've done that enough. Go back to the mocks, repeat the mocks, right? Do those, topics. Here we are doing a general practice of CR questions, which is like important, and we'll eliminate the options, right? We'll pick our answers. We'll do it in a way that you remember how questions are to be solved in CR, right? Let's solve the first question. What is the central idea of the passage? This is an often repeated, question pattern. Like 2021, 2022, it's written central idea. And when we are discussing central idea, of course, we have to discuss main idea. I'll discuss the question with you. Let's do a revision of concepts as well. Central idea is asked in the question. What they are trying to ask you is, you read the passage. One was about delay. One was about principle of sub judice. Now, what's the central idea? Getting my point? Like two different paragraphs, you have to give an answer for central idea. How will you do it? That's your question, okay? Try solving the question that you remember it. You remember what needs to be done in this question. That's your task, okay? Looking at this question and the options, those who are smart, I know you'll pick the answer and you're like, move on. Fine, good. But even to you all smart students, why would someone frame a question in a way where three are wrong? Why? Try and think. Like, why would someone ask you a question and not even bother to give you two, exactly actually confusing options. Why? Because I'll give you the answer. Why waste time? We are already, of course, we have to like study. A month or so is remaining for us, right? So we won't waste a minute. And the answer to this is that the person who's preparing the paper wants the student to solve some questions quickly, right? If you have read the passage well, and some only few questions where you actually need to exercise your brain. When we find easy questions, you overthink those questions in a way that how can a question be easy? How is the option getting so eliminated so easily? Why someone has given such an option? Again, these three things are not your job to think. You have to solve the question. And also, one more thing, why did not someone put a better answer? An answer which covers everything. That's also your point. Like, अच्छा ही बना देते ऑप्शन. अरे जो दिया है, जो 4 ऑप्शंस है उनमें से 4 को देखो, pick your best answer and move on. Even CLAT consortium website says that you have to pick the best option, not the correct one. Like, यही answer होगा. You write the main idea in the margin and you're like, answer has to match this. Does not matter. You have to pick the answer out of the 4 options. Okay, let's look over the options. The Indian judicial system. Did you read this anywhere in the passage? You did not. But we know this is talking about Indian judicial system, right? When I say inference topics, known and unknown, these are some implied things which the examiner or the person who's prepared the question knows that you know. And you can take it. You don't have to match the word that Indian judicial system is nowhere given in the passage. That's not a good excuse to leave the option. Is plagued by intentional delays that undermine its effectiveness. These words as such, except this delay part, is nowhere in the passage, right? So does your instinct say that this is a wrong option? You should ask these questions to you, right? To yourself often. See, from the first paragraph and the principle of sub judice as well, we can directly know that it is talking about delays, and intentional delays is coming from the line where it is written about advocates and lawyers, right? Advocates and lawyers, intentional? It can be intentional, but let's see if this is exactly correct answer or not. See, when you read this, undermine its effectiveness, central idea has to take the whole thing into its account. And when you read the passage, don't you think the CJI or the author is trying to point out that these absurd reasons are responsible for judiciary not doing its actual work? Am I right? Or am I right? When you are reading it, you can easily see that what they are trying to convey is that judiciary is not working up to its mark, right? Let's look at other options. The principle of sub judice. Now, this was in the second paragraph as it is written in the first line of the second paragraph. Is inconsistently applied in high profile legal cases. Do you think, the first question is, do you think even this option is correctly framed? Like, answer is different. Coming to the answer point is next. Let's first discuss even if this line is correct according to the second paragraph or not. This even line is framed wrong. Only the principle of sub judice, these 4 words, matched your second paragraph. That does not mean this whole line is correct, right? So this, not without even discussing if it's an answer for the question or not, I have removed it. Why? Because this line is wrong, given the fact that this is not implied from the second paragraph of the passage. The Chief Justice of India, CJI is written, Chief Justice of India, full form. India's speeches fail to address the core issues in the legal system. Article is not about CJI's speech. There is a passing reference to CJI in the passage, but that does not mean the article is discussing the speeches given by CJI. So this does not even form a correct statement. Divine intervention plays a significant role in major court intervention judgments. Divine intervention is written for Ayodhya case, but that does not mean CJI is saying what? That divine intervention is important for court judgments. Even this statement is wrong. Correct answer by elimination method is what? Option A. By your logic, if you thought that intentional delays is not the main idea or the central idea of the passage, if you look at both the passages, principle of sub judice and legal delays, both are trying to discuss what? Intentional delays. Okay. If you are not sure for the words, you're not convinced that it's an intentional delay through and through, eliminate the three options. You will find your answer. Okay, you will find your answer. Let's do the next question. So, in this question, see, the question is asking us primary consequences of legal delays in the Indian judicial system. Same as before, if Indian judicial system, it's not as such in the passage these three words, but we know it is talking about Indian judicial system. First, in primary consequences का मतलब है कि क्या हुआ, right? मतलब इसकी वजह से legal delays की वजह से क्या होता है? That's your question. Increased efficiency in case resolution and improved public trust in the judiciary. See, legal delays is not something good. तो public trust increase होना, efficiency increase होना does not seem in coherence with the problem as such. Okay, a massive case backlog and a large number of under trials awaiting justice. If I am not wrong, this thing is in the passage. This thing is in the passage. Second and third line states these 2 points. We have marked also. So this seems like an answer coming from the passage. Next, enhanced adherence to the principle of sub judice and reduced media interference. See, this option is coming from the second paragraph of the passage, and also important part is that this is not an answer to legal delays. These two are not in tandem. Okay, so this option is not an answer for this question, though this line is framed correct. You know, this option has been framed very correctly, but not an answer to the question. Faster verdicts in higher profile cases and decreased lawyer manipulation of the system. Again, it's a solution kind of thing, not a consequence to the problem. The only answer after eliminating three options and also the one which is related to the content of the passage is answer B. Answer is what? B. Okay, am I clear? Are you getting what we were supposed to do in this and what these options mean? This is a positive, this is a positive. If this is correct, then this should also be correct. This should be your thinking, right? If this is a problem question asking you consequences, and if two options are written in very positive tone, then you should be able to understand that there can't be two answers correct, and you can't differentiate between two equally positive things. Then these two have to go. What we are trying to do here is how to think correctly about the question and the options that follow. Next, the passage suggests that certain legal practices contribute to systemic inefficiencies. Okay, which of the following best represents the author's view on how these practices affect the judicial process? 2021 paper had similar kinds of questions. Okay, certain legal practices, if I am not wrong, systemic inefficiencies, the author has written the advocates and the experts, they delay the verdicts and then still lose the case. That's the inefficiency. That's the practice which leads to legal delays. Legal delays is a systemic inefficiency. And what's the practice? The delayed caused by advocates and experts. They inadvertently streamline complex cases by allowing for thorough examination of evidence over extended periods. See, this option is telling you that this legal practice, it does what? It streamlines the complex cases, like it puts the complex cases into a direction and allows for thorough examination of evidence, right, over extended periods. The legal practice which is mentioned in the passage, that the advocates and the lawyers, they delay the verdict, that practice and this option are not in coherence. Okay, and also this is not author's view. Author's view, we can know the author's view only from where? The passage. So maybe option A is correct, but it is not mentioned in the passage. They create a facade of due process while actually serving to protract legal proceedings indefinitely. Let me first explain you this option, and I think to explain this option I should go back here. See, here. The community of lawyers and advocates expert at seeking adjournments to delay verdicts एडवर्स टू देयर क्लाइंट्स, राइट. अगर कोई केस हारने वाला है तो वो लॉयर क्या करते हैं, कोर्ट के अंदर एडजर्नमेंट्स सीख करते हैं. उससे क्या होता है, दे हैव नो डिजायर टू विन केसेस, दे लूज देम आफ्टर बाइंग देयर क्लाइंट्स टाइम. मतलब समय लेने के बाद भी दे लूज द केस इवन अ डेकेड और 2. मतलब 10 साल या 20 साल बाद भी वो केस को हारेंगे ही. ये है लीगल प्रैक्टिस जो पैसेज में ऑथर कह रहा है. अब इधर देखो, दे क्रिएट अ फसाड ऑफ ड्यू प्रोसेस. फसाड, नाटक करना कि भाई दिस इज लाइक आई एम सीकिंग एडजर्नमेंट क्योंकि इससे कोई फायदा होने वाला है, दैट्स लाइक आई एम फॉलोइंग अ ड्यू प्रोसेस. पर एक्चुअली क्या कर रहे हैं, सर्विंग टू प्रोट्रैक्ट लीगल प्रोसीडिंग्स इनडेफिनेटली. पर कर क्या रहे हैं, असली में लीगल प्रोसीडिंग्स को डिले कर रहे हैं, राइट. इफ दे आर आस्किंग एडजर्नमेंट अगेन एंड अगेन, और उसके बाद में भी उनके पास में बताने को कुछ नया नहीं है, दे डू नॉट हैव एनीथिंग न्यू टू ऐड टू द केस, बट दे स्टिल आस्किंग फॉर एडजर्नमेंट्स और सम काइंड ऑफ डिले इन द प्रोसेस. एक्चुअली व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज केसेस आर गेटिंग पाइल्ड अप और दे आर गेटिंग डिलेड इन द courts. This seems like an answer related to the passage and to the question as well. But because I am solving CR question, I can't be sure in marking B option till I have not eliminated C and D. Right? Are you getting the thinking part? You have to think through the question and the options. And because right now we have the liberty of time, like exam is not tomorrow, right? You have the liberty of time to learn how to think. Critical reasoning is more about thinking correctly rather than picking things from the passage, right? C option, they enhance the judiciary's ability to handle high profile cases by managing public and media scrutiny. This option is about those media and all they do, no? And also this legal practice, if they enhance judiciary's ability, this is wrong in itself. This is not discussed in the passage, also not an opinion mentioned by the author. ND means not discussed by the author in the passage. If something is not discussed, maybe you feel, word is feel. You feel that this is correct, but it has to be correct in reality. We are not talking about our feelings. We are talking about the content written in the article. They balance the interest of all parties involved, ensuring fair outcomes despite prolonged judgment, right? See, we don't even have to read the half one. What is balancing the interest of all parties involved? Here only the option is wrong. All parties involved, the interest you are trying to balance, but you are doing a wrong legal practice. Whose interest are we balancing? Lawyers only, right? The only person who is getting benefited from that one legal practice which is discussed in the passage, who is getting the maximum benefit? The lawyer, the advocate. So all parties involved are not getting their interest balanced. So this automatically goes out, right? So we are left with only B option, which is correct according to the question and also according to the content, according to the legal practice. One legal practice which is written, like the author does not approve of, is correct for answer B. Okay. Should we do the next question? Are we getting the thinking part? I'll remind you again, this is a topic, this is a subject which needs interpretation. It does not need your encyclopedia knowledge, does not need your journalist level knowledge. It does not require that. It simply wants you to understand some basic words. Suppose it's a legal article, you are supposed to understand legal terms. Suppose it's a philosophical article, you should know what is the meaning of consciousness, right? And they are doing this so because the basic assumption for this exam is someone is sitting in the exam well prepared. And well prepared means you've read the articles as well. You understand the different themes, the different words used in different, ideas, topics. You understand that. Basic. We don't need definitions. We need those words to click some kind of knowledge in your mind. That's it. We do not want encyclopedia knowledge. Next question. Take your time, read the question, read the options well, and then do it. Let's look at the question. According to the passage, what characterizes the approach of certain legal professionals in the Indian judicial system? See, the last question was also discussing the legal practices, certain legal practices. Here also, certain legal professionals it is discussing. More or less, it's asking you the same question, right? But do not jump the gun, right? I know what this is. Oh, okay, I know it. Don't jump the gun. Wait, read the question well, read the options well, and then eliminate 3 options to put your answer into the OMR sheet. See, we'll discuss 2 more things. Let's do this question again, then you'll feel otherwise distracted. Let's do this. What characterizes the approach of certain legal professionals in the Indian judicial system? They expedite justice through swift case resolution and minimal adjournments. What those lawyers and advocates are doing is they're seeking adjournments and taking cases up to decade or 2. It has to be wrong. There is nothing good written about certain legal professionals for me to take A option as the answer. Next, they prolong proceedings by seeking frequent postponements and delaying verdicts. See, this was the answer. This similar answer was for last question as well. But they were asking you what is the author's view on such kind of inefficient action. They were asking you that. Here they are asking you exactly what's in the passage. Same topic, same line has been used to frame 2 questions. You have to be interpretive. Interpretation has to be correct, that which of the following will answer the question irrespective of the fact that what they are asking is not clear to us in exact words. What I mean by that is, see, when you are given a question, pick the central idea. What's strengthening the argument, what's weakening the author's argument, what's the conclusion, inference, you know what you have to do, right? Such questions are asking you inferences. That's an inference question for sure. But when such words come up, now what characterizes the approach? We are bound to think beyond the question, right? In that case, my suggestion is read the question, pick the main word from the passage, what it is surrounding, which part of the passage, and directly move on to the options. You'll find the options easily getting eliminated, right? They prolong proceedings by seeking frequent postponements and delaying verdicts. They accelerate trials by leveraging media attention in high-profile cases. This seems like a very good option, right? This seems like a very good option, but we have nowhere read that the advocates are using this, media thing to accelerate trials. Am I clear? Why C is not the answer, and why did I pick the certain legal professionals point from this first paragraph and not the second one, right? That lawyers are using this media thing to accelerate the trials. I have not taken this because this is not mentioned in the passage. Not mentioned in the passage. The topic related to this option is discussed in the passage, but this particular point is not mentioned. They expedite judgments by invoking the principle of sub judice strategically. We do not know. This is we do not know option that the advocates are using this principle of sub judice to their own benefit, to the benefit of the case. We don't know. Some options are framed very well, they are very good, but as it is, if they are forming the answer to the question or not, we don't know, right? So what from the characterizes the approach of certain legal professionals. We are taking the answer from the first paragraph. Why? Because the option B is exactly what the author is saying, is also highlighting the answer, and can easily negate cancel out option C and D. I can easily eliminate C and D on the basis that they are not mentioned, and also on the basis I don't know what's author's opinion on option D. So I will pick answer B from the question. Now, coming to the point that I was telling with the help of this example, you're suppose confused between whether this legal professional thing is asked from first paragraph or second. That's your confusion, right? All three options sound correct. How did I pick option B? That, examiner is asking about option, B. Simple thing is, if C and D in these same terms and, language is not in the passage, why would they be a correct answer? Are you getting my point? I am still not clear what the examiner is asking me. But I am clear in this point that C and D are not from the passage. Like, these lines as such are not discussed by the author. So they can't be the answer, right? In the cases when we are not clear, the question sounds ambiguous because there are two types of legal, professionals discussing. Second, also it from this that you hyphen the cases in the media and you can get your, support from the people. That's fine. But how do we know that we have to pick the answer from the first paragraph, the discussion of lawyers and advocates seeking adjournments, because C and D are not discussed in the passage, right? And when they are not discussed in the passage, when they're not related to the passage, I can easily eliminate them, right? Am I clear? When you are confused between two options, the first thing is to pick the related answer. Again, a revision of it. First, your choice should be answer to the question. Okay, whatever the question is asking you, the best answer is that you are answering the question exactly. That should be your answer. Suppose you find that the question is not clear to you. Okay, in that case, you take the option which is more or less related to the content of the passage or more or less to the major elements of the question. Okay. Third, suppose you find two options and you're like, both are correct. I have heard students saying that I could not eliminate the two options. In that particular case, suppose you've understood the question well and now you're stuck between whether two out of those options, which is your correct answer. Suppose the question is about weakening the argument, okay, and you are stuck between two. Check if your option is directly weakening the argument or your option is indirectly discussing the same thing. Okay, are we clear? Your first answer has to come directly. Next is your indirect option. Suppose you are in a very fortunate situation, you are given an answer which is indirectly doing the work. You do not have the luxury of a direct option. Then it's fine. Then you are saved. You will directly pick that indirect reasoning and you will weaken your argument. But if you have a hierarchy of options, you will first take the argument which is related directly to the question. Second, you will take indirectly related to the passage or to the question. Okay, and in both the cases, I am very clear that argument is clear to you. Okay, argument is clear to you and then you are picking this direct and indirect answer. If you're suffering from that problem, that one, you change the options. Right, because we are revising things, this is very, very important thing to be discussed. If you are changing your answers without logically thinking about the option, you are making a grave mistake. वो आंसर गलत ही होगा. That answer will be wrong when you are changing it. Suppose I want to change here my answer from B to C. Only in that case I can change my answer very confidently if I have thought through this option C. You in the back in the back side of the mind, you have those things playing again and again, like C seems right, what's wrong, why am I not picking C? If you are logically able to decipher the meaning of C and then change your answer from B to C, in that case you can change your option because the right reasoning strikes you. You are correct, you have changed the answer. But if you are picking your answer from BC and you have no reason as to why you are confused or why you are picking B in place of C or C in place of B, do not change your answer. Put your answer directly into the OMR sheet. Am I clear to you all? Like अगर आपको लग रहा है कि दो ऑप्शंस के बीच में आप यूं ही कंफ्यूज हो, कोई लॉजिक नहीं है आपके पास में फॉर दोज फॉर चेंजिंग द आंसर, आप उस टाइम अपना आंसर डायरेक्टली OMR में फिल कर दीजिए. Right? If you are not sure about the reason and simply playing with the options, A, B, A, B, put your answer in the OMR sheet, because this is not your final exam and you still have the time to go through the mocks and to attempt more mocks. Check your gut feeling. Put marks for your gut feeling. Like you put your answer directly in the OMR sheet as many times as you are getting your answer correct. Without changing the options, your gut feeling will become so strong. Intuition works. If you're very sure, if you're not changing your reasoning again and again, and you're directly putting your answers, this is my first logical answer and I'll put it in the OMR sheet. Your gut, your intuition will become so strong that you'll be able to pick the answers in like first go. When you see some students who are very good in interpretation, you are like, why they are better at it? They are strong in their intuitions as well. It's not possible, for every question to have a reasoning at that particular time. In that case, you're simply sure that I've read this line, it's the answer, and you'll mark it, right? And to get that kind of confidence, you have to start marking your questions, your answers in the OMR directly. I am telling you to put your marks, to put your answers directly in the OMR sheet. Do not wait for anyone to tell you otherwise. Let's do this question. The passage suggests that the principle of sub judice is ineffective in protecting courts from criticism in high profile cases. It has written an example of the Talwar and Thari case, right? So it is ineffective in protecting courts. And why is this argument coming up? Because author is saying that the principle of sub judice exists, but still people outside the court are criticizing the court, right? It's coming from there. Which of the following, if true, would most weaken this claim? Most weaken this claim. Be very clear with the stem of the question that what they're asking you to do. And they've given you the argument as well. The passage suggests this thing. This is your argument. You have to weaken this argument. Okay? Let's do the question. A recent study shows that media coverage, see, of course we'll solve the question as well. Do not find this as an interruption because we are revising. I'll tell you what students do. They'll read it like this. How many of you do it like this? And you take your answer only on the basis of this. Okay, a recent study saying this is correct. And what happens is many times your answer gets correct because it's coming from a study, but that's not the only reason that your option is correct, right? Read after this that also, right? Read the further statement as well. Do not simply pick your option like this, what's the source, and I'll take my answer. Okay, first, a recent study shows that media coverage of ongoing high profile cases has decreased significantly. Okay, we are decreasing the media coverage due to strict enforcement of sub judice rules. Okay, this is saying the principle of sub judice is ineffective in protecting courts from criticism, and this is saying that if we reduce the media coverage of these high profile cases because of strict enforcement of sub judice rules. Okay, this seems like to me a direct answer that if media can't cover the case, the criticism will automatically decrease. Like that's a direct weakening of the claim, right? It's ineffective. The principle of sub judice is ineffective. If I enforce this properly, this protection of courts from criticism is obvious for me. That's directly in option A. Let me check BCD, right? That will be the correct approach to refine my thinking. Okay. Public opinion polls indicate that people are more likely to respect court proceedings when the sub judice principle is invoked. This is a discussion of respect, and that too more likely, and people is in general, not media. The criticism is coming from where? Media. The option should include what? media. That's a general option that people are more likely to respect the quote. I will not take this answer because this appears too general to me, right? And is not directly attacking or directly challenging the author's argument. I will not take this because of its general opinion about people and not media. It's in media, protecting quotes. And why did I pick the word media? Because it's in the passage, second paragraph. Legal experts argue that the principle of sub judice is outdated and should be abolished in favor of more transparent court proceedings. Now, this option is only discussing principle of sub judice. I'll remind you, this is that option where one element of the argument is getting attacked. How about that? Did you see this? Only principle of sub judice is getting attacked over here, but the argument is full. The principle of sub judice is ineffective in protecting courts. It has to be a complete argument weakening and not only one word weakening. That's why I will remove this, because this is only talking about one element of the argument. I don't want one element of the main argument getting weakened. Statistics reveal that judges in high profile cases are increasingly using contempt of court charges to curb media interference. See, if I take this as my option, that you're curbing media interference using contempt of court as your reason, how does this counter the argument of principles of sub judice? See, options are framed correct, but they should be related to the question as well. This is that option, right? Your only correct answer is option A. And why is that? Because it is directly providing a challenge, as we have read earlier as well, directly providing a question mark to the author's argument. Okay, and if true is written in the question, that's why it's a answer driven question. It's if true, you have to believe that if this happens, right, does this challenge the author's opinion or not? Is this a question mark or not on author's argument? Do not think about how is this possible, who will do it, who does that. Don't think on those terms. You have an argument, you have to question it. That is your weakening. Okay, that is your weakening. If I directly take the media element, I reduce the coverage, criticism automatically goes down. And how did I do this? I invoked what? The strict enforcement of sub judice rules, which is a part of the argument. Okay, when you are solving a weakening question, go for the full argument. If it's written A leads to B and you have to weaken it, right? Take this full. A leads to B, how will I challenge it? A can also lead to C, or A may not lead to B. That will be my weakening idea, right? Do not simply weaken A, or do not simply weaken B. I'm not talking about choices here. It's like an event and followed by another one, right? Do not weaken elements of the arguments. Simply remember weakening as if you are arguing with someone. Like someone says to you that CR is my favorite subject, right, in CLAT preparation, and you go on weakening CR, right? What are the faults with CR? That's work. That is you doing what? Weakening only one element of the argument. Instead, go for the full argument. That's a good weakening, right? See, from what we have studied in these 2 hours, I'll give you a gist. We discussed assumption versus inference. Assumption is unstated and is true according to the author, taken for granted in such a way that he does not feel the need to write the assumption in his article. Okay. Inference is what? You have read the passage, what you have understood from the passage. It can have logically related unknown elements in the options as well, right? I'll revise the example. The class was of 2 hours starting at 6 p.m. Then the class ending around 8 p.m. can be an inference. 8 p.m. word is written in the passage is not important. It has to logically extend from the passage. Okay. Next, what we did is answer driven questions and passage driven questions. Passage driven questions, you'll remember the type of questions, you will pick your answers from the passage for those particular kind of questions. And when answer driven questions you are solving, you will focus on the options, whether they are answering the question or not first, and second, are they even making sense as an option or not, right? Be careful when you're picking your answers in CR. It's a subject of interpretation. You have to do it in a way that you read and understand things simultaneously, right? Simultaneously have to do both the work. And before I leave the class, before we end the session, you still have time. I am very sure about that. If you put your hours into good use, you can study all the subjects as is required for the exam. You only have to do it strategically, right? Do not be, aaj ye kal wo. Put a proper plan into on a piece of paper, right? For CR, read 2 articles, 3 articles as your time permits you, but read the articles to teach someone. When you are teaching someone, you do not miss the points, right? Even if you miss the points, you get back to it. Why? Because someone is listening to you. You tend to lose less information, you tend to make lesser mistakes in reading because you have to tell someone those points, right? Read the articles to teach someone will be my first advice. Next, practice questions and check the reasoning. You don't have to check A, B, C, D is correct or not. You have to check your reasoning. Whether is it at par with the passage or not, or have you gone overboard, right? Third thing, at all times, remember everything is possible. You have less time, you feel it's fine. You still can do anything and everything you feel like doing, right? You can waste this precious time or you can put it to very good use. And putting it to very good use is my suggestion to you. Why break your rhythm of studying simply because you feel that you have done enough or you feel you are lacking in some parts? Go on doing it. You can do only your part, right? You can work hard, you can stay positive, you can, do every single thing possible which is in your hands, right? Which is in your hands. Rest, leave it to if it's meant to be or not. Do things which are good for you, right? Ask your doubts. Do not leave things for the last minute that I'll ask someday. I'll pile up things and I'll ask someone. No one is going to help you in a day. But help can be provided to you for 30 days, right? If you have doubts, you ask us. If you feel you are good to go for the exam, practice more. Think logically. Shed your confusions, doubts, those prejudice. If you have some about, some topics, read into the topics which you feel you are weak in. That's it. Do things that matter for the exam, right? And I'll repeat this again. अगर डर लग रहा है तो डर से बड़ा हमारा ड्रीम होना चाहिए. It's you simply have to, start with your day. पढ़ाई करो, डर लग रहा है, talk to someone. Let that feeling pass over and study again, right? That's important for us. पढ़ाई इस टाइम पर और भी ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है if we have done everything or if we are lacking in some parts, right? So I hope these topics and these questions help you think critically, right? Think CR rather than simply solving the question. Focus on thinking. You still have time to do wonders. See you next time.